Welcome back and many thanks for staying with us right here on Morning at NTV. If you haven't left your humble abode, it is really imperative that you arm yourself with a face mask. Not only arming yourself with one, you're actually wearing one, and it's covering the hot spots through which the COVID-19 pathogens could be inhaled and they may be able to enter your body. I'm talking about the nostrils. Point number one, and also the mouth. These are points through which you can be able to inhale the COVID-19 pathogens and also actually pass it on to another individual. So a face mask and also ensuring social distancing of at least 2 to 3 meters is the way to go. And of course, these clarion calls come in the wake of developments from South Africa where a new variant was discovered. Variant B11529. It was given a Greek name, and that is Omicron. Now, variant Omicron is much more dangerous than Delta variant and also variant Beta. Now, for the variant Delta, yes, it has 3 mutations, and for Beta, it has only 2 mutations. But for this new Omicron variant, it has 10 different mutations, and that is reason for you to actually be scared. Please actually ensure social distancing and also wear a face mask at all times. It doesn't matter which jab you received, you need to keep yourself safe and the person who is in your closest vicinity in that regard. Let's get on to our next conversation. We are largely talking about skilling young people for employment. Yes, I have Joy Kafua. She is the founder of Cho Moa. Yes, that is an organization. She's going to be giving us details on what it really entails. Now, Cho Moa, Cho means boys and Moa means ours. So Cho Moa, there you have it, our boys. We are going to be talking about skilling the young boys. But then we do have a female at the helm of this organization. So why is she not looking at the females or girls in that regard, but rather the boys? So could you tell us briefly about this project? Very good morning, Joy.
Good morning to you. So honored to be here.
Indeed. So
about the Cho Moa, as you have already mentioned, Cho is an Alur word which means boys, and then Moa is also, it's still, the whole word is in Alur.
Yes.
So it means our boys.
Yes.
So this is basically a project which is looking at creating a platform for skilling and mentoring the boy child, basically.
So this is basically mentoring and skilling of boys, no girls whatsoever, or anywhere?
No.
Wow.
No.
Wow. Could you please tell us why you chose to focus on the boys?
I would say, if I would ask you, how many projects do you know which are basically for boys?
Indeed, every time we, or celebrate or observe International Day of the Girl Child, the question is, what about the boys?
Yes,
indeed.
What about the boys? So that's where we come in. There has been a gap which has been created. There are so many projects that have come up which are trying to, to bridge the gap which has been created by gender inequality for the girl child. But then in so doing this, there has been a gap which has been created, leaving the boy child behind. And so while we are doing this, we want to also bring in the boy child. They shouldn't be left behind. Because if you look closely, all the problems, if I would say, which they're fighting for, they're fighting against, actually coming up from the boy child.
Go ahead. How do you plan to implement this project?
So how we plan to implement it, first of all, it's first going to be, we are first starting in Zombo district. Which is my home place where I grew up from. So we shall start right there, and then of course right now in the process of coming up with different strategies of how we shall identify the boys in the community. Maybe one thing that I didn't mention, these boys are just not any boys, but the boys who have dropped out of school at a very early age, and then also they've been exposed to drugs.
Indeed.
Imagine a child being exposed to drugs. So we are going to identify these boys who have dropped out and then have also been exposed to drugs through the community, because the community, they know them. They know these boys and they know what they've been doing. And then of course we take them through a series of mentorship program, and then later skill them, take them through different skillings, and then lastly link them to employment.
And of course, you're starting in your home district of Zombo.
Yes.
Could you please bring us up to speed with how this COVID-19 pandemic has affected these young boys within this jurisdiction of Zombo? And then we can talk about the similarities accrued from other districts in the country, whether or not they are actually suffering the same fate.
Yes, I would say like any rural area, this COVID has been, of course, a blow.
Indeed.
And like here, I know, for instance, that a number of children this side actually studying. They're not studying online.
Yeah.
But a child down there isn't studying.
Where
That
there
is,
is
those
no
who are in
internet
school.
penetration.
Yes, there is no internet. Even if there is internet, the gadgets are not there, the devices are not there. So that has really impacted a number of children that I'm sure that once school resumes, there are so many children who will not be going back to school as they should. And then, of course, the boys, they will now join this gang of boys who drop out of school and then get exposed to
Let's
drugs
not
and
move
all
too
that.
quick, Joy Kafua. You did mention that many could not continue with their education, largely because of the internet. And when we reopen schools, many of these young people might not go back to the school setting. Let's talk about the factors that might stop them from going back when we reopen in January of 2022.
Yes, I would say the school factor, leave alone the internet. It's not only the internet thing. Would say a number of children actually dropping out of school already. They're dropping out for a number of reasons. For instance, I would give an example of that place where I grew up from. It's like there's a cycle which is pretty obvious. Yeah, a child will join school at maybe the age of 6 or 7. That is primary one, of course, in a UPE school. And then they will study through hurdles and all that.
Minus kindergarten.
Yes, minus kindergarten is luxury.
Wow.
That side.
Early childhood care and development, it's really important.
It's luxury because most of them are actually private, and that means you have to pay a fee. Now, they do not have that fee since they cannot even, sometimes the little fee which is required in the UPE school, they cannot afford that. So a child will join the school, it's UPE, they're requiring a very little fee, which they must pay, but still they'll reach a point and not pay it. Not only that, they do not have the basic needs. They don't have mere books, the pencils they're supposed to use, uniforms, shoes. And now that side, in any school, when you come without the basic need, you're supposed to be punished. Say a child is punished and then time comes for them to, to sit exams and they can't because they haven't paid, they haven't been attending class. And then a child has to repeat the next year, go through the same process. And going through this, you reach a certain age. Remember, you already started school late. So you have repeated this class so many times and then you're like, this is not worth it, This is, I'm done. And then before you know it, a child has actually dropped out of school to nothing. Yes.
So you actually believe that by January 2022, if none of these is rectified, most of these young men are not going back into the school fold.
True.
That's why your organization comes in.
Yes.
Go ahead. How will it be able to help?
Where our organization comes in, first of all, like I mentioned before, the gap has already been created. There are already a number of boys who have dropped out of school. Yes, we are looking forward to also creating out programs that, help these ones who are in school stay in school. But then what of these ones who have already dropped out of school? They've stayed out of school for so long. So they've been exposed to drugs. So that is where our program, our project comes in.
They're focusing on those who left the school
Those
setting.
who have already left.
Okay.
And then, like I mentioned before, mentor them, take them through a series of mentorship by the community. We want the community to really be involved in this, by the community, and then a series of skilling, and then linking them to employment so that they are not nuisance into the community, but they add value into the community at large.
And of course, this was part of the MasterCard Foundation's Social Venture Challenge. It did have 90 projects in there that participated in this challenge. How is yours different from the rest? You can tell us more about the challenge.
This was from, it's called the Resolution Project in partnership with the MasterCard Foundation, but also me personally, I'm under the MasterCard Foundation Scholars Program. And so yes, the project is one which of course identify MasterCard scholars who have ideas. And then we go through a number of I would say competition, a number of pitching and all that. So how you ask that, how is this different from the rest? I would say basically ours, it's about boys. There were a number of projects which were about girls and all that. And so it's about boys, that's one. And then also it has that holistic approach of not only mentoring and skilling the boys, but also looking forward to employment of these particular boys.
Of course, you've heard one too many times that if we are to do away with the skyrocketing teenage pregnancies that are now kept at 500,000 and the early childhood marriages that are now kept at 17,000, you'd have to involve the boys in this whole process.
Yes.
Talk to the boys, nurture the boys. If the boys are skilled in some kind of business ventures or so forth, they would be so busy they wouldn't have time to engage in any sexual encounters or shenanigans in that regard. Am I right?
Exactly.
Go ahead.
So I would say that, as I had mentioned before, the number of things which are happening with the girl child, that of course there's so many thousands, I would say millions of organizations that have come up to fight this, the early teenage pregnancies, the even gender-based violence. You have heard that saying that a hungry man, a hungry man is an angry man.
Indeed.
So I would say, I would give an example. A number of these violences that happen, you'd realize that the guy is actually broke or something like that. So yes, so the boy child really needs to be empowered for the battle of the girl child to be won in any aspect. So really, everyone needs to come in, not just if this battle for the girl child to be won the boy child has to be brought on board. They have to also value this, they have to understand this, and they have to also be empowered, because they're the sons. These are sons of a mother, brother to a sister, you know, a father to a certain daughter. So they have to be on the front line of all this.
Indeed.
But first, they have to also be empowered.
Joy, how do you plan to use the support that has been given to you by the MasterCard Foundation?
Like I said, the resolution project, currently we are working in partnership with them to set up strategies, to set up grounds that we are going to, you know, to use to empower these boys. Currently, it's not just the funding alone. They're really giving us a broader support in all aspects, you know, advice business-wise, you know, in all aspects. And so that's what we are doing. We are really using them to see how we can make this a bigger thing, even in the long run, not just something that will run in 1 year or months and then it dies.
So it's a long-term project.
It's a long-term
Where
thing.
do you see it in 5 years?
Where do I see it? I see us becoming, I would say, the biggest skilling and mentoring program, not only in our region, West Nile, but in the whole of Uganda, because the boy child is also everywhere. So I believe that every other region needs to have something like this. Everyone needs to be mentored. Everyone needs to have a hand to walk in. Even a child who has never gone to school, they need someone to work with. Yes.
Of course, we are talking about areas like Zombo in the north that are grappling with the biggest chunk of child labor cases. How has child labor affected or led to the skyrocketing number of young children dropping out of school? Are parents also to blame for this problem?
Are parents to blame? I would say not exactly. Parents are not exactly to be blamed. I would say the entire community.
The entire community.
The entire community should be blamed, the entire community from down to up. I would give a scenario. Me, myself, I started working, I would say, when I was, 8, where, you know, they're not providing at home, not because they don't want to, but because it's not there. So as a child, you have simple needs that you want. You let it be even buying a sweet. You want that. So you're seeing there's something to do. Me personally, the first thing I did was, you know, you go and do sign binding and you go and sell it. I worked in a hotel when I was, I think, 10. So these things, it
I went
comes
to
up
Kabale
from
and I
up.
saw young children in stone quarries together with their parents working early in the morning. And that's how debilitating the situation got. And it was normalized culture.
It's quite normal to see a child, you know, moving around selling banana. So there is a need. It's not just the child labor, but the whole problem coming from way down. Let's say I'm not at school. Yeah, I've dropped out of school. My parents have failed to afford the small fee which is supposed to be paid. I'm at home. What am I supposed to do? Of course, the next thing is come and help at home. Come and help in the restaurant. You go and sell these bananas, you know, and bring 2,000 of profit and feed the family. So this is a whole big chunk of a problem that even as a child, you want to help your parent. You're seeing what they're going through. Of course, not everyone is going to the garden in the morning. You're seeing with the business they're doing, and you're like, okay, Mom, I can do this. Father, I can do this. I can help you with this. And you help with them. They're not seeing it as a big problem, but at the end of the day, it becomes a huge problem in the society and to the children.
And of course, this child wants to just levy some kind of support to the parents. But then at the end of the day, schools will reopen. Parents will be like, okay, it's time for you to go back to school. And then the learner is like, no, I'm now a man. I'd rather be in a field somewhere making some money. Is this the attitude we are dealing with? Are we at a threatened level whereby we shall reopen schools and most of the learners mention this same statement? I'm now grown up. I don't need to be in school.
Yes, it's possible. Because like I said, even before COVID, a child will repeat a class 2, 3, 4 times, one particular class, and then remember other children are coming in. So a child of 5 years, 6 years comes and find you. You reach 10, you're in the same class, and you're like, okay, this is it. I'm doing away with this. So this may be the same challenge that the number of children who have stayed home for so long. First of all, they've already been old. I would say you'd find, unlike this side, you'll find a child of 13 years is in senior 1. That 13 years, you're maybe in primary 4 or primary 5. So at 18, you're in senior 1. You have stayed home for 2 years.
I hear you.
Now you're 20 years. How do you go back?
Of course.
Unless you have a push behind you.
And I can see the biggest problem here is lack of early childhood development for the learners in the rural setting vis-a-vis their counterparts in the urban areas.
Yes, that too. But then also, like I've been mentioning mentorship and mentorship, there is also the need to push these children. Yes, the children who are self-driven. For instance, when you go back home, there are very few who educated people they can look up to, that they can see, okay, there is purpose, there is something good out of this education. So these children need someone to guide them, someone to work with them, to actually tell them that there is value in this education. However much you're old, however, whatever age you have, there is a brighter future. There is light at the end of the tunnel. You don't have to give up at this age. So regardless of it all, they really need the mentorship, they need the guidance, and that has to come from the community.
Okay, the mentorship coming in from the Cho Mua organization that is being run by you, Joy Kafwa, is it only going to be focusing on the mentoring and also the skilling part for these young people so that they can gain employment at some point, or are you mentoring them to actually get back into the education sphere?
Like I'd mentioned, currently what we are going to start with, yes, the mentorship is broad, but we are starting with that sector of boys who have reached a certain age that may not exactly want to go back to school. So they have to be mentored to get skills that they can use in the community. Now, as an extensive program, we look forward, of course, mentoring, pushing back these boys. Some are, of course, young. The very young ones, 6, 7, and you find them smoking, you know. These ones can be pushed. And then also mentoring them or guiding them the effects of the drugs that they're being exposed to. And then also carrying out extensive programs through a number of schools that's helping these children to stay in school. So it's a holistic approach altogether.
It's more understandable now. You're looking at retention of these young boys into the education system, and those who had already left or swayed in the other direction to come back into the education fold. Thank you very much for that. So what advice would you give to other young people who are seeking to find or create work?
I would say they have to look around them.
Okay.
There are problems everywhere. Every time you turn east, west,
there's a problem that needs to be solved.
So the first thing, of course, in creating works is you recognize that, yes, there's a problem, and then find a solution to it, to this particular problem.
Don't be a job seeker only.
You can be. You can be. Yes, you can seek for a job, but then even in your seeking for a job, what solution, what problem are you solving? Yeah, there is you going to a job and it's just to bring food on the table. So there has to be a problem that you're solving in one way or the other. Okay,
if one of our viewers is interested in knowing more about the MasterCard Foundation's program, including the Scholars program, what do they do to join?
The MasterCard Scholars, there is MasterCard Foundation, then there is the MasterCard Foundation Scholars Program. So I would say if we really want to know about this, they have websites.
Yeah.
There is MasterCard Foundation website, and then of course we are in a social media world, you know, and check out all the handles. They have handles on Twitter, they have handles on Facebook, they have on Instagram, so you can check out all these different platforms. They're mostly named MasterCard, so MasterCard Foundation, so you can check them out and then get inspired. There's one particular program called the Young African Works, which is in Uganda, so you can check it out from the website.
I see. That is Joy Kafua, the the founder for Chomwa, the organization that is actually working to implement some activities that will go a long way in mentoring of the young boys, not only in Zombo and many other districts where young boys are grappling. If you have fallen off the wagon and you're no longer in the education system, they are looking for you, and they're also looking for you if you want to remain into the education system. All right, that's it for this conversation. Thank you very much. Any final pointers for our viewers before we let you go? Especially the young boys. Camera one.
Yes, so I would say for the young boys out there,
Boys' lives matter.
Yes, boys' lives matter. We are not leaving you behind. And I also call upon everyone else, even the women.
Indeed.
Like, I'm a woman.
We can't do this without them.
Yeah, we can't do without you. You're the mothers of these boys, so we need you to get on board and support this boy child and bring them up on board. So even you, the boy child, look forward to being supported and guided by these women, by us the women, and then the boys too. Yes. All
right, thank you very much, Joy Kafua, and indeed the conversation has been put to a hold. My name is Rome Busiku. Of course, we also do have Ms. Awalugembe John, who is ready to indulge us on the issue of the stimulus package, the 200 billion Uganda shillings that was put aside for the small and medium-sized